Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bright Funders Talk at Temi. Temi is an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. Welcome to our podcast, where we bring you the most inspiring stories of entrepreneurs and experts in the software development industry. And each week, we interview successful leaders who share their unique journeys and valuable insights. I'm your host, Barry, and today we're lucky enough to be joined by a remarkable guest, Steve Farfsing, who is founder of multiple successful international companies. Hello, Steve. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Barry. Nice to
How are you
be
doing
here.
today?
Fantastic. It's Friday.
Excellent. We loved it. Yes, it's Friday. It's always a good day, isn't it? First of all, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. We really appreciate you. We know you're busy, so it's great to see you appear on this show with us. For anyone who doesn't know who you are, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit of your history with some of the companies that you have founded?
Yeah, I know a lot of people that brag that they're serial entrepreneurs, but I don't know if it's a compliment or not. But I've had a few, and I think my success through life has been that I love sales, and you can build the greatest product in the world, and if you can't sell, and that led me through a series of companies. Ended up with some call centers. We did sales for tech companies. And we had more than 300 salespeople between here, the Philippines, and the Dominican Republic. And that was really the genesis of ProspectStream, understanding why one salesperson kills it every day and another person gets killed. We had good hiring practices. We trained incessantly. In my journey, I was a sales trainer. There was no real explanation. It's an accepted norm, the 80-20 rule. That was my quest. I was far enough along in my career, and we needed to be the best sales organization possible because we charged a healthy fee for our services. So it was worth the effort, but we just started counting. And that's what led me to ProspectStream. The processes that we built are very marketable in themselves. So I used to travel the country doing speaking engagements as a good promotional tool, and people got to know who we were. But I was in Chicago speaking to a group of sales executives, going through our methodologies, and a big part of our methods are data oriented. And so you have to collect a lot of data and follow the steps that the data tells you. And I had a person halfway through my talk ask me if I was going to sell them software.
And then here you are.
Yeah. He got up and left, and two people left with him. It really rocked my world. This is the early 2000s. I wasn't a software person, but I was totally unprepared for that question. I gave him some flip answer like, it's your problem. But yeah, that was the message.
Did you always know that you were going to be an entrepreneur? Was it something that you just have in your blood, or is it something like just the situation was right and the timing was right?
I was a sales rep for a little ad agency, and he stopped paying us. And after a while, I figured I could work for myself and not be paid. My wife was cooperative, and I struck out on my own, really just selling other people's products, and saw they weren't doing the best. So I bought a few little companies, and helped put them together and build it up. And after a while, I wasn't doing sales anymore, and it wasn't any fun. So I sold it. And that's kind of been my model, is, start, build, sell. And that's what ultimately happened to my call centers, because I fell in love with software, and that's now been 14 years, and I'm still in love with it. It moves fast, it changes fast. It's really interesting.
We love a story with a happy ending here on Temi. What was your original vision for an ideal go-to-market platform? And like, how has it evolved since you had that vision?
Yeah, well, my career spans VHS and fax machines. So communicating to the prospect has always been the main thrust. And for a while, I was a advisor at a tech business incubator, and I was there for sales, helping them figure out sales. And it's interesting, entrepreneurs don't think enough about that. And I wouldn't be popular in the beginning of the cycle, but by the end of the cycle, I was the most popular person in the building. Um, so it's get out there from the first minute you can, with your ideas, talk to people. You don't have to be selling, but gathering information, gathering ideas, thoughts, understanding the problem. And if you can't do that, then get a partner that can do it, get somebody that can do that, because not everybody's comfortable with it or cut out for it. So get somebody that can get out there and talk to people. Beyond that, raising money and, that no one wants to talk about that topic.
Mm.
That's a
You mentioned
pain.
partners there. How, like networking, were you lucky enough to have a network? Did you need a network in the beginning? And like, how important is having a network?
Yeah, my network in the beginning were my clients that I carried over from the ad agency, and I didn't know enough. I this is humor, bear with me, but I used to say I was the perfect blend of arrogance and ignorance. You go out there headlong and full of ideals and beliefs, and run headlong into business. And you need, finding a good mentor is super difficult. And that's probably the hardest thing to do, is find a good mentor, because a lot of times they're just sharing what they did. And who cares? Doesn't help me any. The time passed. Just like I wouldn't expect you to follow my path. So, figuring it out is something you have to go do. And yeah, networking. I've learned to be a networker, and I have a very substantial network of people that I can call on. And just like any good networker, it's all about doing for them. So I'll tell you, a gentleman that owns a company, very successful tech executive, I want him to be in my network. So what am I doing right now? I'm helping him sell a new product using my network to sell on his behalf. I haven't asked him for anything yet, and I won't for a while. So, but he'll eventually become an excellent part of my network.
Is
I
it kind
get
of
people.
altruistic then, what you're doing it, or is it because that you think maybe it's going to be helpful to you in the long run?
Both. I'm sincere in my desire to help them. They have an amazing product. It's an AI tool for developers, and it's I wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't a good product. But I have expectations. I don't like to be in debt, so I want to build up the equity first, and then we'll
Yeah.
spend some of it. I believe he's a good guy, and he'll play along.
You mentioned AI, so as soon as you mentioned AI, I've definitely got to ask an AI question. Like,
Hmm.
what role does AI and machine learning play, or could play, in like smart prospect targeting?
I mean, that is the fastest moving question out there. 14 years ago, I didn't know anything about AI. Our tool uses, we'll say, machine learning at this point, and I had to go learn a lot about it. You can do a lot with simple algorithms, and I mean, all AI is algorithms. I
Mm.
was listening to a very brilliant AI expert, and he said all AI does is count and follow whatever algorithm you built. And that's true, whether it's generative AI or predictive AI or fuzzy logic or any of those. But the world right now is about, we all see generative AI, that's out there 90 90+% of everything you see is generative AI. And it has its uses, but it also has its baggage. Predictive AI is really what's beneficial for sales, because it's finding those patterns that will bring productivity. And productivity is not a word that you hear associated with sales often, but it is the most important word when it comes to sales. Why did those salespeople fail? Well, they didn't have productivity. Did they think they had productivity? Were they working hard? Oh, absolutely. Everybody worked hard. We measured everything, so we know they worked hard. But a simple metric that AI helped me find is, how often do you call somebody? And there are almost 50 of these rules that our system follows. But how often do you call? So if you've got an interview salespeople, they'll say, well, I call every day or I call once a week. Pretty consistent. Yeah, there are outliers in that, but the vast majority will say that. So we counted, we figured it out, and it's a nice bell curve. And right at the peak of that bell curve is 3 days. On the bottoms of either side is every day and once a week. So naturally, salespeople take themselves out of productivity by doing just that alone. The simple things like, do you leave a voice message? Do you send an email? They're all pieces of your productivity. And if you don't know the exact model that works best for your target audience, you're giving up huge amounts of productivity. So, am I meandering?
No, you're doing very well.
Oh.
I suppose the question is, usually when I ask AI questions, people tend to be like really hyped about it. And maybe I'm wrong, but when I hear you talk, I don't feel that level of hype and excitement about it. I feel like you're more pragmatic about its limitations. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say. I am very excited about AI. The thing that we confuse, there's a couple things. So one, AI shouldn't be about replacing people. It should be about making them better. There should be a fusion between the person and the technology. And we spend way too much time trying to figure out how to eliminate them from it. As good as AI can be, it's nowhere near our brain's ability to process data and the data that we've accumulated, and things like feelings. There are too many things that AI can't account for. The things it can account for, it's amazing. Does fantastic. I'm a big consumer of AI. I'm excited about it, but it's that we get excited about the wrong things. If you're excited because AI is going to help your sales rep write an email, yeah, you got better things to be focused on than that. First of all, I don't think you really want your salespeople writing the emails. I think marketing should be doing that and providing emails for certain situations. What AI or predictive AI runs on is a process. So it's measuring within a consistent framework. Generative AI is about language. It is interpreting words, and it's looking for the repetition where they can know what's best to write for you. So, and the more you train it, the better it'll be. It's got a very powerful result, but its scope is narrow. So I run into that all the time. I talk to people that want to talk about our LLM. I mean, we don't have a large language model. We don't have that. It's not part of what we are building. We take your data and apply our predictive AI to it. I'm going to step back a piece even prior to that, and that is you have to collect the data. And that's where we're failing. So, I'm a big CRM advocate. I've used it, bought my first one in 1987. I've been a power user for a couple companies. But the problem is that the tool that we built in 1987 is still the same thing. CRM, it hasn't got a prettier face, but it's the same technology. And I talk about the data that the system collects, and I ask people, well, how much data does a CRM collect? And they give various answers, but the answer is zero. It doesn't collect anything. It only has things that you collect. It stores it for you. And then what does it do with that stored data? Nothing. It only does what you tell it to do. So it's almost like anti-AI. Uh,
You're
you
taking
know,
the magic away from it, Steve. I feel like it's all being stripped away and the skeleton's there now.
and I upset a lot of people with that kind of talk, but I mean, it's the truth. If someone can prove me different, prove me wrong, I'm happy to look at it. But I bought the idea and worked hard to make them work in the past, and you can get them to do uh, basic things for you, and it is an improvement, but it doesn't answer the critical questions, which are productivity. If you look at the sales process, it's really two things. You got to be good at two things. You got to be good at the conversation. So we call that the say. And then you have to be good at the work. You have to make your calls, send your emails. So we call that the do and the say. So all the AI that's coming out is generative AI, and it's all focused on the say. And the do adds the context. So if you're gonna record my conversation and analyze it, you need to know how many conversations I've had with that person in the past, what they've been like, what their level of qualification is. Do they fit as a prospect at all? There is a mountain of data that needs to go along with that to add context. And since systems don't collect that, they don't have it to do that piece. If a prospect is agitated or happy or whatever emotion it's the system's uncovering, what value does that bring us? What did I do through the process that got them to that point? Um, those are things that we're not looking at that are paramount, along with other things. I counted them up before we started here, and our system has the capabilities of containing 1,158 data points on a single prospect, and that is the framework number, not the uh, accumulated history. So a lot of those you're adding to every time you touch that prospect. So it's thousands of data points. 12% approximately, we depend on the salesperson or some other technology like name of the person's name, the company's name. 12% of those data points are those kind of data points. The rest we collect. We use the term passive, so we passively collect it, but it just means that we do it without you knowing it. We're just doing it. And that's where the productivity comes from. So, and for those people that might be a little confused when I use the term productivity, again, it's not about working harder. It is numbers. So, can you make more phone calls in a day or send more emails? I mean, we're not an email automation tool. We integrate with them, but tracking that email is certainly part of what we do. But yes, we can increase those numbers. So if you're making 20 calls a day, we can probably get you to 50, maybe 60, because we're bringing a tremendous amount of efficiency. And that's where the AI is helping, because we put your daily sales plan together for you. So you're not spending any time on that. You've got what we call the today list and you're off and running. But productivity is about, we call them positive outcomes. So every time you attempt to communicate to a prospect, there's an outcome from that. And you can say it's either a positive, a negative, or it was pushed out. So we're interested in positive outcomes. So part of the productivity is getting more positive outcomes. And that's where simple things like how often do you call somebody? That's why it's not that you can't get more people on the phone. You can get more positive outcomes. And we could go deep into that, but I don't think we have the time for that.
I just want to ask you a different question if I can, just because we're talking about this. We've talked about like the process, the support behind it, but also another element is probably the people, and that's quite important with selling. So what kind of traits or type of people do you specifically look for when you're hiring for like growth or product roles?
That's a good question. And that's very topical for us right now that we're building this interface, but we're going to I like the personality profile assessments. I think that they're valuable. And over the years, I've tried to loosely track what type of personalities are best for sales. And what's difficult is every time you think you got a match, somebody comes along and blows it out of the water. So what we're building now is we're going to give a free assessment to everybody that subscribes to the software, and that'll add to our data points, and we'll also have then the leadership will be able to build a training regime into the software, and it'll remind everybody, it'll keep track, it'll you know um, but we want that because we want to see your personality versus the training, versus where you fail and succeed. It's easy for any of us that's been in sales for a while to say what's probably most likely. Somebody that's a driver, a doer, outspoken people. There's, depending on the test you use or the assessment you use, they all use different language, but you get the idea. We can all say, well, that's the best. Well, what if you can't find somebody that fits that? Or you got somebody that has other attributes that would be really beneficial in your industry. What do? You just don't want to throw them away. And I've learned, from being a sales trainer, that you can get people to learn new things and work through some of the problems that their personality might present. Um, I have done it, experienced it, but all of mine, like everybody's, is anecdotal, and AI doesn't like anecdotal. So I don't have a clear answer, but let's talk in a year from now. We want to answer that question. And I think the answer is going to be the actual personality type doesn't matter nearly as much as we think, that it's more training and the environment that you put them in. And I give you a simple example. I mean, if you're not an outgoing person, if you're not an expressive, but I give you I'm going to use the word script. That bothers some people. We could call it guidance. But if I give you what you need to talk about with that person, and what's most important in there are the questions. What questions do you need to ask? Um, a very private person can do that and do it actually very well because they have an attribute that talker doesn't have. They can listen. The yin and the yang of sales. Be a talker, be a listener. So I think there's trade outs in everything, and so then you train and coach to their weaknesses. Help them overcome their weaknesses. But again, going back to the anecdotal, sales is arguably not a profession. It's a trade, it's a craft. I want to turn it into a profession. And the way we do that is through science, through understanding. My wife's a professor, and each time she's been published, she's an education. and she's brought science to education, and it's fascinating. So we actually learn from each other in these regards. How do we bring science to sales? It's 100% doable, and circling back to AI, that's what's making it possible. 14 years ago, I did it through having mountains of spreadsheets, but that's not, I could do that for my own salespeople. I had a staff of people that did it, but beyond that, it wasn't practical. But now with AI, so that's what I'm excited about. Is we're taking on problems that have been with us since the first person, sold his reindeer carcass to the cave down the trail.
It's the oldest profession, right? Steve, thank you so much for your insightful conversation. I've really enjoyed talking to you. Unfortunately, we're coming towards the end of the time, so we have to end it here. But I just want to thank you so much again for talking with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Barry, it's been a pleasure for me. I'm honored to be here.
Well, the pleasure and honor is all ours. That was Steve Farfsing, founder of multiple successful international companies.